Thank you kindly, Mr. Pitt, Mr. Wolf, which would you prefer? I shall call you Bob. Thank you kindly, Bob. Right, order in the court, order in the court. Hello there, and welcome back to VR Courtroom. For those of you who have just joined us, we are hearing the case against Mr. Gaming, who is accused of arson, although no further details outside of that have been made known to the court. The prosecuting lawyer is Mr. DorkToast, a highly regarded lawyer with much experience behind him and actual legal knowledge, and the defending lawyer is a Welshman, so this should be a fairly interesting court case. I'm Judge Ekron, and hopefully we can crack on and have a bit of a fun case. I'm just going to remind the gallery that I do expect them to act in a suitable fashion. Even if we can't hear them, we can still see what you're doing, so please behave. If anybody enters the courtroom unprovoked, there will be trouble, and it will probably be made double one way or another because old references are excellent. Mr. DorkToast, have you acquired all of the evidence in relation to your case?
I have, Your Honor.
Very good. Mr. Birb, have you acquired all of the evidence in relation to your case?
I have, Your Honor.
Very well, then we shall be proceeding going forward with the standard courtroom procedure of the opening statements of the prosecution and the defence. I dropped it in a previous case and I lost it. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop my pretentious bullshit and we're going to hand the floor over to Mr. DorkToast to make his opening statement for the court. So, Mr. DorkToast, if you will be kind enough to make your opening statement to the court, I will be billing you for any stains you make on the carpet. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state of VR chat will prove the following things about the defendant. We will prove that he was present at the location where the arson occurred. We will prove that he owns a vehicle that was seen leaving the scene of the crime, and we will prove that he had in his possession and had purchased tools which were specifically the type of tools that were used to start the fire. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for your opening statement, Mr. Toast. A concise and confident approach there from the prosecution. I say, Mr. Birb, I think you might be up to your hackles with this one, but I know that you're an excellent lawyer, and knowing that, I'm going to lend you the floor to make your opening statement on behalf of the defence. Once again, I'm billing you for any stains you leave on the carpet. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm here today to object against DorkToast's charges against my client, for he was not actually in the country during the time of the fire, and we have the evidence through where he was and what actually happened.
Okay. Thank you for your opening statement, Mr. Birb. Two opening statements, both filled with confidence and belief that they will win the case, as well as the evidence allegedly to back it up, so I'm rather looking forward to this. This should be a good one, shouldn't it, Bob? Oh, yes, you are called Bob now, you know that, don't you? Anyway, there is no reason to prolong my inability or ability to speak any longer, so therefore I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Toast to present his full and frank case using all of the evidence he has acquired, although not asking the witness any questions as his case goes along, as that is a separate part of court when I'm doing it. Mr. Birb might object using the objection rules as he sees fit. Mr. Toast, please start talking intelligent speak. I would appreciate that.
Your Honor, can I have the bar closed if you don't mind? Perhaps it's only open on my side.
It's weird. It appears to be open. It's like some people seem to be able to go through and some don't. It's weird. Carry on.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would...
Quick question. I can't actually see the evidence screen tidy from here. Can I, move over to the side of it?
You have a thing right in front of you. You've got a tablet.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And the screen is there as well.
Your Honor, I'd like to present prosecution's evidence number... my numbers? I'm numbers, right? Number
I believe
one.
the prosecution is numbers, yes.
Am I numbers or my letter? Yes.
I think your letters.
And my letter? My apologies, Your Honor. I'd like to present Prosecution Exhibit A. Your Honor, you see on this screen 3 documents. One of them is a police report detailing the information about this crime. It has been signed off by 3 investigating officers and the fire marshal, who is one of my witnesses and will be called later. We also have an autopsy report for the individual that was killed in the fire. I will note this is not a murder or manslaughter case. I'm not pursuing that at present. though we do reserve the right to do that in the future if we see so fit. And finally, we have a vehicle registration for a white van with a 1990s logo for an arcade that has been closed for 10 years. That belongs to the defendant, and that is also included as part of this documentation. You will note in the police report that it states that a van matching that description was sighted in the area near where the crime occurred. That is prosecution's Exhibit A.
Any come back, Mr. Birb, to this, or are we just carrying on?
No, I see nothing here so far.
Okay, Mr. Toast,
Okay.
just before we do carry on, heads or tails, old boy?
I will call tails, Your Honor.
Very good. Do carry on, Mr. Toast.
Your Honor, I'd like to present prosecution's Exhibit B.
B. There is the B.
Your Honor, what you see before you is one pack of Morleys, which was recovered upon the initial arrest of the defendant. The defendant apparently smokes Morleys. I will note that a lighter was not found on the defendant at the time of his arrest.
Sir, nothing here.
Very well. Carry on, Mr. Toast.
Thank you very much. I had noted, Your Honor, that you said that witnesses would be later.
Yes, after the defence has presented their case, we do witness questioning in my
I see.
cases.
Very, very, very well, Your Honor. I will then proceed with prosecution's Exhibit C. Your Honor, you see, and I will mention because you are a Brit, Your Honor, one container of petrol, which was recovered from the back of the van, in which is registered to the defendant. It is at this time, and at the time of its recovery, empty.
Mr. CEO?
Nothing so far, Your Honor.
Mr. Toast, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What number am I thinking of?
7, Your Honor.
Good lord. Carry on.
Very well, Your Honor. I'd like to present prosecution's final exhibit, Exhibit D. Here, Your Honor, you will find the defendant's credit card and a receipt for the purchase of 7 gallons of gasoline at a petrol station less than a mile from the scene of the crime.
Your Honor, I'll believe my evidence will speak for itself when I tell it at the court's time.
Oh boy.
Well, Mr. Toast.
All right. In that case, then that concludes my evidence at this time, Your Honor.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Toast. You managed to get through that with only interruptions from the judge, which is quite unusual, but totally understandable. Thank you for that, Mr. Toast. I'm now going to hand the floor over to Mr. Birb to present his full and frank case using all of his evidence, with Mr. Toast objecting as he sees fit. Mr. Toast will also be given the option to object when Mr. Birb has finished talking about a piece of evidence. I like that. I'm going to start integrating that into my cases. Mr. Birb, you may begin.
Your Honor, my client is completely innocent and the evidence will speak for itself. If you may please, could you show slide 1? Here, Your Honor, you will see a certificate of death for an auntie who lived in the UK named Samantha, who is my client's own family. He had travelled from his current location in LA by plane. He had taken the trip overnight and got there in the morning. He, of course, drove all the way there and attended the funeral.
Mr. Toast?
I'll object to this piece of evidence. While it does certainly indicate that this person that the defense mentioned is dead, it does not give any kind of tangible proof that the funeral was attended by the defendant.
Your Honor, if you would skip to slide 2, please.
Number 2, I will allow this as your response. Thank you for your objection, Mr. Toast. Taken into consideration.
Before the vehicle had left to head... I can't.
Mr. Toast, I think you know what to do with this annoying little prick. Thank you, Mr. Toast. You know, I must admit, I do rather like being in the creator of this world. Just getting him to kick people out is just... mwah. Carry on, Mr. Birb.
As you can see here, Your Honor, here is my client's passport, as well as the actual ticket inside with his actual plane travel, indicating the days he did leave his current location in LA to travel to the UK during the day of the funeral.
Mr. Toast, I've got my own observation on this, but Mr. Toast? Don't feel obliged to object if you have nothing, Mr. Toast.
Yeah, I have no objection on that.
Mr. Birb, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. What number am I thinking of?
9.
Oh, good heavens. Carry on, Mr. Birb.
Your Honor, can you please skip to slide 3?
Slide number 3. Very well.
Here is a obituary that was obtained in my client's luggage bag, obtaining the obituary of his Aunt Samantha, as well as the church's location and a bunch of hymns that was sung at the church. However, during the time, no one was able to make it to the church because of said fire.
I'm going to allow suspension of disbelief that this is what you say it is. Can you just reiterate on that last point, please? Nobody could make it to the church because of...
Well, you see, the fire occurred at the home of the departed.
That's an interesting one. Mr. Toast, do you have anything to say to this revelation?
I do, based on this revelation. Your Honor, there was an unusual request. Can I examine the passport from exhibit number 2 in person?
In person, you say? I will allow that, bearing in mind the suspension of disbelief. Mr. Bob, would you be kind enough to fetch the passport of the podium camera number 2 belonging to the defence, please, and bring it to Mr. Toast? I want to get something straight where I'm thinking about as well. I'm going to ask, as Mr. Toast is the prosecutor, the defence has claimed the fire took place in the country of England at the deceased's home, as we assume the aunt lived in the United Kingdom. However, Mr. Toast has brought up the mention of legal terminology you'd expect to find in the United States, implying that the fire happened in the United States. Yes. Therefore...
Right, I did not know it was in that part. I thought it was just like, there's a fire, blah, blah, blah.
Mr. CO, I am going to allow you to amend your case in that case without any punishment, as this information was not correctly imparted by the prosecution. If you'd like to strike out from the record that the fire happened at the deceased's home, I will accept that without punishment.
Yeah.
Very well, then we shall strike from the record that the defence did say the fire took place at the home of the deceased. This was never mentioned on the record. Mr. Toast, if you would like to observe the passport and bring up a point on it if you see fit, bearing in mind I may reject it because I'm a dick.
I would like to suggest, and I had mentioned before that the defendant was found with a pack of cigarettes. I would put it to you that the passport does in fact have a cigarette glued to it.
That's not a cigarette, that's a plane ticket.
This right here.
Mr. Toast, would you be kind enough to bring...
Open the passport and show me it.
Right here.
Mr. Toast, would you approach the bench with the cigarette, please? Can I have a nosy? Let's have a look. Oh, I appear to have dropped it. I do apologise. My servos have gone a little bit rusty, if you'd be kind enough. I need to get some oil for that. Oh, my tablet has just gone flying. Could somebody be kind enough to return the tablet that just went flying, please? Lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Toast.
I would, if the court wants to stipulate that there's no cigarette there,
right.
It might be considered unfair to present that since that cigarette is only there because I didn't text you the passport properly, Your Honor.
Well, I like your honesty, so I'm just going to take a seat and... right. See, that's a tough one, because under the suspension of disbelief, I could very much believe that there is a cigarette in here in exactly the same way that I could believe there is a plane ticket in here. So I'm going to allow the defence to decide. I was going to say, Mr. Birb, would you rather like to accept that both a cigarette and a plane ticket is in here, or would you like to heads or tails it on the two items?
I'll leave up the DorkToast. Do you want heads and tails?
I can heads and tails, Your Honor.
That is honestly the worst decision the pair of you could have made, but right, we are going to heads and tails first for the... I think we'll do this cigarette first, and as Mr. Toast is the one making the claim, Mr. Toast, I'm going to ask you to heads or tails. I already know what it is.
Heads, Your Honor.
Heads, very well. We are now going to heads or tails for the plane ticket, as that came up as well, because we're doing for one, we might as well do for the other. So it's Mr. CO. Heads or tails, my friend?
Well, I mean, if it's not heads, it would be tails.
Well, I've tossed again. You
Tails.
get it. Tails. Very well. Well, that's an interesting one. So, on closer inspection of this object and in relation to the lock checks we've just done, I would like to point out that this is indeed a Marlboro cigarette of the kind you would expect to find in the cigarette pack found on the accused at the time. However, upon inspection on here, there appear to be no plane tickets to the country of jolly old England, unfortunately. That could be because the plane ticket was removed and taken away by the boarding staff. However, unfortunately, the lock has gone very much in the favour of Mr. Toast on this one, and this piece of evidence is a bit dodgy. Mr. Bob, if you'd be kind enough to return that to evidence... Oh, I apologise, I've thrown it over there. If you could return that to the evidence room, I would vastly appreciate that. So let it be known for the record, there is a cigarette of the same kind you would expect to find from the accused on the passport, but there is no plane ticket, although there is reasonable belief why there would not be a plane ticket there. So... having that little indiscretion conversation out of the way, I apologise for luck. Trust me, it's been a hell of a lucky day today for some and not for the others. I'm going to allow Mr. Birb to continue with his case. Mr. Birb, do carry on.
Well, you see, Your Honour, as I've explained, my client was out of the country visiting a funeral for his aunt. I even have a witness of a person who was there at the funeral who confirm my client's attendance, as well as show the court I have the evidence to prove he is innocent.
Well, you do have one more piece of evidence on here that you haven't presented to the case, so if you'd like to carry on, Mr. Birb, we are ready.
Yes, I do, Your Honour.
Very good.
Could you please change slide 4?
Once I figure out these buttons, very good.
Your Honour, these are the call logs for the store that was burnt down near my client's home, which he works at. However, during the same time, so does DorkToast.
Wait, sorry. Can you repeat that last bit again? Are you saying that the prosecution lawyer works at the place, the establishment that was burnt down, which has now been established as a store? Which I'm willing to accept because nobody's established what the actual location is. Mr. Toast, I must ask you, you work at the location as claimed by the defence.
Your Honor, I did previously work there. I believe that most people here would agree I am in fact a garbage fire, but I don't believe that has any impact on the case. Thanks, Your Honor.
Though I could believe that there is the possibility the prosecution may have a chip on their shoulder or a specific desire to bring your client down, that is not something that would be considered contamination. I can't think of the correct terminology right now, but I don't think the fact that he works at the location in the past, or even if he works at the moment in time, is reason to dismiss him as a lawyer in this case. Although it's a very interesting piece of evidence, I do query what the fact it's a phone call, Mr. Bob.
We currently have someone in the the gallery, just raising their hand and jumping.
He is a witness who I'm sure will be called when witness questioning comes. Mr. Hotz, I'm aware of your existence. Thank you kindly. I do request that you continue to wait patiently. It is vastly appreciated. As I was saying, Mr. CEO, could you just explain the relevance of the phone call log for me, please?
The phone call log was about 3 minutes before the initial fire started at the store, before it went out of business, hence why we are all here. The call log came from the storage unit, which is where Mr. DorkToast worked as a storage man. He worked in the back with storage. The call came from a nearby land phone that was on the premises to an outside number from a person who was actually good friends with Mr. DorkToast.
So, just before I allow Mr. DorkToast to object to this, are you putting the claim forward that Mr. Toast is the guilty party in this arson case? Because that's what it sounds like.
Yes, Your Honour.
Mr. Toast, you are allowed to object, and I think you'd be a damn fool if you didn't, old boy.
Yes. I'll object, Your Honor. Your Honor, as you may know, in the state of VR chat, our economy is not doing well. I've had to take a second job. Being a trash can head, the storage-related job that I have been called out on is, in fact, that I have been working part-time as a trash can, Your Honor. I would hope that the court would not hold that against me.
Mr. Toast, when I first left the production line, I was used as a portable battery pack for some preppy student working at the University of Go Fuck Yourself. I can appreciate having to take the less than satisfactory jobs to get by, especially in difficult circumstances. So the fact that you are working as a less than desirable job for a man of your stature is not something that the court will directly hold against you. I do believe you should continue to address, however, what the defence is claiming in relation to your in relation to this case, as it is quite a serious accusation for the defence to spring on the last words of their case. I'd like to point out, very exciting.
Actually,
and one moment,
no,
Mr. Birb. Go ahead, Mr. Toast.
I would state it very clearly that it is the defense's duty to prove the innocence of his client, not the guilt of any other.
Mr. Birb, if you'd like to make comment, I wouldn't normally allow that, but I will in this particular case, because this is a very interesting accusation you've made, old boy.
Actually, Your Honour, I do have one further piece of evidence.
Do you?
Yes, I do. It is part of his evidence.
I will allow this, for I am curious. Mr. Birb, what letter?
Your Honour, could you please show the pack of cigarettes that was obtained at the scene of the crime?
Number B, the Marley cigarette, or Morley.
Your Honour, my client actually did have a problem with smoking in the past. He would actually smoke about 40 packs, well, not 40 packs, 40 cigarettes a day, and it caused him some lung problems. However, he has been going to therapy. I can't remember what the actual base is called. However, after his time, he has quit smoking. It took him a while. It's been a year since he's last had a smoke. However, in memory, as most people do, he carries a packet of cigarettes on him to remind him about how far he has come. Which is why that packet there is still sealed.
Ooh.
I'll object to that, Your Honor. Still sealed, you say? Where, then, did the errant cigarette in the defendant's passport come from?
Well, obviously he used to smoke a bunch. I'm sure he must have picked one up around the house and just left it next to his passport.
I see.
He doesn't get to clean. He doesn't clean his apartment, Your Honour, very often. evidence, so he does come across the odd cigarette every now and then under the sofa.
Mr. Birb, heads or tails?
Tails, Your Honour.
Very good. Carry on. Or have we finished with this?
Your Honour, I've presented my evidence, and I believe it should speak for itself. My client is innocent.
Very well. Well, that's some relatively interesting evidence that's been presented. I must admit, quite an exciting case. A bit of a twist right there at the very end. Yes, quite pleased with that. I'm sure Mr. Bob is as well, because he's still here. So, and if he's still here, that means it's definitely good. So, thank you, lawyers, for the cases you have presented. I have all the evidence and knowledge I need. And realistically, I could come to a decision currently. However, we do have witnesses, which may help or hinder your case. We will follow the same procedure we did in the last case, where the prosecution will be allowed to call their witness, and then the questioning will happen, and then the defence will be allowed to call a witness. I would rather like to avoid witness questioning going on for a huge amount of time, as I find it can really conflate things, and I do have to remember all of the rolls and luck number things I've done, which are pivotal. So, Mr. Toast, would you like to call your witness to the stand?
I would, Your Honor. May I call the courtroom for a witness, please?
You may do. Who would you like to call for the stand?
Court would like to call Fire Marshal Tartan Rock of the State of VR Chat Fire Marshal's Bureau.
Very well. Mr. Rock, if you will be kind enough to please head up to the witness stand. Mr. Bob, you're going to have to swear. I know your name's not Bob, but I just love calling you Bob. You're going to have to swear Mr. Rock in. Mr. Rock, Mr. Tartan, how would you prefer to be addressed as? Mr. Tartan or Mr. Rock or Mr. Tartan Rock?
It's Mr. Rock, please, Your Honour.
Mr. Rock. I can never remember because I call you everything under the sun. Mr. Rock, the bailiff will do the speaky thing.
Usually I would say raise your hand, but do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I promise to tell the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Alright.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Mr. DorkToast, you may start your questioning, and this should be interesting. Go ahead, Mr. Toast.
Thank you, Your Honor. Marshal Rock, how long have you been a fire marshal for the State of VR Chat?
I've been a fire marshal for 12 glorious years.
And in that time, would you say that you have examined and investigated more than 100 cases of arson?
Yes.
Based on your... Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
No, I disagree with you. I have a number of cases.
In your experience as a fire marshal, having seen so many cases and investigated them, do you believe that the fire that was caused at this building was completely and intentionally set fire?
I believe it was,
Your Honor, may I see prosecution's A?
Prosecution's A.
On the screen
That
here.
would be this one. That one. Number A.
Yes, Marshal Rock, on the left here, the police report, which includes information about the fire. You did sign that police report, correct? And its findings related to arson.
as far as I can see it.
I'll take a closer look. You certainly can. I can.
I did.
Yeah. You did. Okay. Very good. And based on both this report and your immense experience as a fire marshal, how would you say this fire was started?
I would say you described the fire most brilliantly, sir. It was started the way you did.
Started which way? With what kind of accelerant? What kind of... What started the fire?
The thing that started the fire was...
I could see prosecution's exhibit, I believe it's C, Your Honor.
Oh, yes.
No, wait, no, it's that one. Beg your pardon.
Yes. I was pretty sure glad I was able to jog your memory there. So it is your opinion that this fire was started by gasoline, correct?
Gasoline, 100%.
Right. Right.
Very good, very good. And last question for you here. Leaving the scene, did you see anything interesting or anyone attempting to leave the scene when you had arrived?
I believe I saw a man or woman under charge leave the scene.
Very good. You've been having a lot of that whiskey, huh? Is it good?
No, I
You're making me want whiskey too. Yeah, you had it, but you don't anymore. Okay,
Thank you
appreciate it.
kindly. Mr. Toast, I wonder
No
if
further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Toast, I wonder if I may have a word with you in my chambers. Mr. Bob, will you ensure that the witness does not go anywhere? Mr. Musician Man, I'm going to politely request you go away. You stay here, please, Mr. Rock. Mr. Toast, a word.
Yes.
You may want to get rid of that annoying little shit before we start conversing, for I believe he has stolen my seat and will push all of the buttons to ruin everything.
Oh dear.
No frets, no frets.
What was his name? What was his
dealing
name? It
with
was Kendry.
What's his name? He's the guy who's bloody...
He's gone.
Thank you, Mr. Toast.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Right,
He's gone.
Mr. Toast,
Yeah,
if you'd be kind enough to take a seat.
we had planned that conversation really well, but it seems to.
Well, you see,
drowned out
here's
by-
the problem,
by
Mr.
whiskey.
Toast. Are you aware that your witness is drunk in court?
I am aware of that fact.
Do you think
He
it's
wasn't
appropriate?
drunk when I talked to him in the conference room.
Do you think it's appropriate to bring a drunken man into a court of law, my court of law?
Your Honor, I would put it to you that in the search for the truth, a drunken man with the truth is more valuable than no man at all.
I will put it to you, Toast, that is some redundant shit they teach you in lawyer schools, and I will politely request that you do not bring a drunk man into my court again, under the punishment of a mark on your bar record, because I know Mr. Tartan, and I know he gets drunk frequently, and I accept that's entirely not your fault, but I just wanted to have a reason to come back here, use this room, and tell you off for bringing a drunk man into my courtroom.
Understood, Your Honor. Won't happen again.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Toast. You may return to the room, and I'm going to take a moment in here.
Thank you.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right.
Take my tablet back. Oops.
Do declare all rise, please, Mr. Bob.
Your tablet.
Make sure to say all rise when the judge comes back in. Yeah. All rise. The judge adultery.
Good enough.
Sad now.
Thank you. Oh dear, I appear to have accidentally thrown myself across the room. I seem to do that quite a lot. Thank you for the tablet, Mr. Bob. Much appreciated. Right, I apologise for your interruption there. I just needed a quick word with the prosecution. Thank you for your patience. Mr. Tartan, if you'd be kind enough to sit again. Mr. Birb, if you would be kind enough, do you wish to ask any questions of the witness here?
Yes, I would, Your Honour.
Then please approach the witness and ask your questions.
Mr. Rock, during your questioning, you were asked that if you had saw the victim who had started the fire, you declined and said that you go and only make out that it was male or female heading towards a truck. Is that correct? No, that is exactly what you just said.
Mr. Rock, what did you say when you were asked by the prosecuting lawyer that you saw? What did you see? Do you remember the gender of which you stated?
I could identify the
Carry on with your questioning, Mr. Burr. Thank you, Mr. Rock.
Actually, Your Honour, that is all I needed.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Burr. You may take a seat. Thank you for your time, Mr...
May I recross your own? May I recross your own?
No. I did have a conversation with Mr. Toast. Based on this current witness and the testimony he's given, I'm afraid I am going to dismiss him as a witness from any further questioning, bearing in mind that his testimony to me is somewhat tainted as he has contradicted himself through questioning by the defence, and although I do love you, Mr. Rock, and I genuinely do as a person, I do believe that you are intoxicated in my courtroom, which is not something that I'll allow to happen, so I will politely request that you return to the gallery, and what you have said will be taken into consideration, but I can't promise it will be fully taken into consideration. Mr. Toast, do you have a new lawyer by any chance? Oh, apologies, I appear to have lost it, Mr. Tartan. Try again. Thank you, Mr. Tartan. Right, Mr. Birb.
Your Honor, I have no further witnesses at this time.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Toast. Mr. Birb, do you have any witnesses you'd like to call to the stand?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Who would you like to call to the stand?
May I call Hop to the stand?
Mr. Hobbs. Very well, Mr. Hobbs, I'm going to unlock the central bar. I'd like you to approach and take a seat on the witness stand where you will be sworn in by Mr. Bob, our beautiful bailiff. You should be able to go through now, if you just walk directly through it. Just walk through it. That's it. Lovely. And if you'd be kind enough to take a seat on the witness stand over here, where Mr. Bob will swear you in. I like calling you Mr. Bob now. Your name is Mr. Bob, I've decided. Carry on. Swear him in, old boy.
Put your hand up or some shit.
That's fine.
Do you promise to tell the truth? Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Alright.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Mr. CEO, you may begin your questioning
Your Honor.
of the witness.
Would you please bring up slide 4? Your Honour, my witness today is none other than a worker who works at a call firm, who was in charge of the phone call that was sent from Mr. DorkToast to the friend who is currently unknown. The call log is introduced from Holtz, which I become acquainted with during the course of this trial, and he has confirmed the call log of DorkToast repeatedly calling a unknown number, complaining about how he works, how he is untreated, how people throw garbage at his head because he is a human trash can with a head, and that he would love to set this place on fire multiple times, Your Honour.
This is true.
And okay, so how's about you ask Mr. Hotz a question in relation rather than spewing? What's the?
I was just explaining
I
it.
can't remember the word I'm thinking of. It's
I'll object to that, Your Honor. It's leading the witness.
Honor.
Yes, I'm going to accept that objection of leading the witness. Mr. CEO, if you're kind enough to physically ask questions of the Hotz. I appreciate who you've explained he is, but that's not necessarily the questions you ask should lay that out. So if you'd be kind enough to carry on, he has legal knowledge. I have to pretend he knows what he's doing. Go ahead with your questioning, Mr. Birb.
Okay. Mr. Hotz, were you at the time of the phone calls to... At the time of the phone calls, did you receive multiple phone calls going back and forth from Mr. DorkToast to an unknown caller about him complaining about fires?
I'll object again, Your Honor. Just
Abstain.
again, as it's leading the witness, in order to not be a leading question, they need to be open-ended, like who, what, where, when, why, as opposed to yes or no questions, Your Honor. Leading questions are generally reserved for opposing.
Okay, Mr. Toast. Okay, Mr. Toast. I appreciate, again, I know you have more legal knowledge than everybody in this courtroom put together. I don't normally enforce rules like that too heavily on witness questioning because we're all idiots, but I accept your point. And will say, Mr. Birb, if you could please avoid trying to lead the witness in the statements by asking the more open-ended rather than the did you see this, are you a penguin, are you actually a fish sort of thing. We would appreciate that.
Well, that was the questions I came up with.
I understand that, but now you need to reword them.
Only an attempt to,
This is interesting. See,
I
as an example, would only attempt to assist the court, Your Honor. Things such as, what did you hear while you were working?
Yeah.
Are open-ended enough
Okay,
that witnesses can relay it in their own words.
I said I appreciate
Okay,
that,
I'm gonna
Mrs.
use
Toast.
that.
I said we're sort of. I said I know you've got like out of character. I know you have more legal knowledge than the rest of us put together. And like when it comes to me doing court, I try to allow them to do things within reason that you don't really need to know legally, which is why a load of like the objections, they don't follow any actual legal obligation. I just talk shit. So I get what you're saying. I'm going to ask Mr. CO to follow, but there's no punishment for him for doing that.
Of course, of course.
Carry on, Mr. CO.
Well, as Mr. DorkToast just... Oh, God. Ow.
Yeah.
Mr. Hotz.
Yes.
What did you share during the time of the most recent call before the fire?
Should I state with the first call, then the last?
The most recent before the fire.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I've heard the unknown person actually did not speak.
What?
Please leave. I'm telling him to leave. So, I heard it. Toast, but the unknown person not even talking, that, I really like burning something, and meet me at this location, which was the area of the fire, and I went there as immediately as I could. I only saw Toast talking with someone in the shadows, but I saw Toast using it. Can you please put it on the gasoline, Your Honor?
I believe that was C on the prosecution. There we go, the gasoline.
I saw him using this exact same gasoline.
Right.
And when I saw the fire start, I saw the unknown person actually getting caught in fire. But when a little bit, when this, I saw only smoke, the unknown person disappeared.
Right, okay. I'm going to physically stop you here, Mr.
Your Honour.
Fox, and I'm going to stop you, Mr. CO, and I'm going to ask, Mr. Toast, do you have anything to say before I interject here on this?
I'd rather you handle this in a way that works for your
Okay.
courtroom, Your Honor.
So-
I feel like anything that I say here is not going to be...
No, it's fine, Mr. Toast. I'm just asking if you want to state for yourself before, because I have a few questions I'd like to clear out for the relevance of everybody involved. Mr. CEO, you said that your witness here was a gentleman who worked in a call centre handling the calls between Mr. Toast and the unknown person, correct?
Yes, Your Honour.
So he
can I
worked-
also just explain...
Let me finish.
Can I also
So-
say one thing? Okay.
So he works in this call centre, but he also happened to meet at a distance Mr. Toast and the unknown person in the shadows and observe Mr. Toast setting fire to the shop, which is what he's just said.
Your Honour, I believe my...
And the unknown
Your,
person.
Thank you.
Your Honour, I believe my witness has just given the DorkToast the entire courtroom as he has failed to actually answer the question the way I hoped he would, which is yes, already no.
You do realise that, to a point, I do allow the lawyers to tell their witnesses or their clients to shut the fuck up if they need to, and, perhaps not the swearing, as I'm the only one that's allowed to swear in this fucking courtroom. I do allow you to tell people to shut up, although it can be taken into consideration. But your witness has basically just turned around and said that he was there at the scene of the alleged crime from a complete tangent from the phone call thing. We're in a small town. There's most likely not going to be a big call
know for
centre
sure
monitoring
that
these sort of
You
things.
get pushed down a bunch of stairs.
Your Honour, I would like to put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger.
Mr. Birb, you don't have opposable thumbs to do that. Oh wait, you do, but I'm not going to let you do that, and I do not wish those kind of jokes, but I'm the only one that gets to kill people here, and I don't sentence you to death. However, I am going to throw your witness out as an unreliable witness, unreliable testimony, as we have jumped from the logic that he's in a call centre observing calls, which I don't even know how he would observe these calls in between unless he's part of a government tapping ring, as the state of VR does not generally record and monitor phone calls unless there is expected criminal activity, of which up until their case there was none on Mr. Toast's behalf, to literally being there and observing Mr. Birb, which is very, very much a Mary Sue of a piece of evidence, and therefore I'm dismissing your witness. So I technically dismissed both of the witnesses, one for being drunk and one for being an unreliable testimony. So thank you kindly for your time, Mr. Hotz. I'm going to request that you now return to the gallery. Mr. Birb, if you take a moment to sit down.
Took a chance on you, Hotz, and you fuck it up.
Mr. Birb, I'm the only one that's allowed to swear in this fucking courtroom. Please restate your statement in a PG fashion, please.
I am Welsh.
Very good. You are Welsh. That's understandable. Right! Well, that was a rather interesting witness testimony. We must admit we did have a drunk witness, which has been mentioned to the lawyer in question for bringing a drunk witness in. And Mr. Birb, I'll be seeing you in my chambers after the court case to discuss your witness as well, as I think that's only appropriate. But thank you, witnesses, nonetheless, for attending court, and thank you, lawyers, for your line of questioning. I'm pretty much throwing out everything the witnesses have said, personally. Almost everything. I am keeping a little bit from the drunk testimony, but not a huge amount. So bearing in mind that we've done the witness questioning, we are now going to move on to the closing statements of the case. These, much like your opening statements, are short and concise statements about your case where you can sum up, and you may mention evidence, but you may not bring up actual video of evidence on the screen. Nice and simple, no more than a minute and a half worth of talking. So as we have through the entire case, Mr. Toast, as the prosecutor, I will allow you to make your closing statements to the court first. Please, for the last time, do some talking.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The prosecution, on behalf of the state of VR chat, have shown means, motive, and opportunity as applied to the defendant. We have shown not only that he had acquired the tools which were necessary to perpetuate the crime, we have also shown that the crime was perpetuated with the kind of tools that he purchased. We proved that he and his vehicle were near where the crime occurred. And I believe that we have shown not only beyond the defense's exhibits, but beyond the shadow of a doubt that the defendant is indeed guilty of this crime and should be punished under the applicable laws of our great state. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Tote, for your closing statement, full of passion and conviction there. Mr. Birb, if you would make your closing statement for the court, we'd vastly appreciate that.
Your Honour, as I've mentioned, my client is innocent. He was nowhere near the fire during the time of this actual starting. He was currently out of town visiting a family member and other family members to mourn a loss of a dead relative.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Birb. And thank you, lawyers, for the cases that you have presented. Genuinely very interesting cases that I have thoroughly enjoyed listening through this one. Now, I didn't do it for the last case, but I am going to do a judge's summary on this since there were so many luck-based rolls, and I feel it is only fair to explain to the lawyers how and why decisions have been made. So I will begin with the prosecution case as it was presented to me, starting with the first piece of evidence, which now allegedly appears to have a shotgun on there, but this will not be included because there are kids. Now here we had a police report, a fire report, and another report I don't necessarily remember. I think it was a vehicle registration, which was basically the report of the fire, which was established later on to be a store that the prosecuting lawyer worked at. We never actually had a link for the store to the accused. We never knew if the accused worked at the store, or if it perhaps his mother owned it, or perhaps his cheating wife was there, something perhaps that could have been linked in, although I accept by the time the store point came up, the prosecution's case was done. We had a signed investigation here in relation to the fire by the fire marshal of the state of VR, who is in the courtroom with us today, acceptable evidence, and a vehicle registration showing that a business owned by the accused, which owned a vehicle with the logo belonging to the accused, was seen within the scene of the fire within 1 mile during the time of the fire. So all nice kind of circumstantial evidence that builds up a case of what's gone on there. Moving on to the second bit, this was when it would work. Quite an inch. I said when it would work. You know, these buttons are a pain in the arse. A packet of cigarettes without a lighter, as this was pointed out by the defence as well. The accused did have a 40-a-day habit and dropped the habit, which is understandable. You stop smoking. Well done, Mr. Gaming, for that. But he still carried cigarettes around with him as a memento to remind himself of the horrors that he exposed his lungs to. As you can see, he's very clearly had open lung surgery that didn't quite go right and hasn't healed properly, so I could definitely believe that. But these were found on him, but without a lighter. And technically what the defence said in their case does actually match why there might not be a lighter in this case. So that was a good save there, defence. But the point in hand is it's still there. We have the gasoline, and this was a very important piece of evidence. The gasoline was what was used to start the fire. And if I do recall correctly, let me just have a quick look at evidence number D before I carry on. Yep, that was it. So I've got a sandbag there for some reason. This was what was used to start the fire. A gasoline can found, I believe it was in the back of the van belonging to the accused, which was entirely empty. And evidence number D was and it was found in the back of the van, and it was entirely empty, belonging to the accused. And here we had a purchase of receipt of 7 gallons of gasoline / petrol, depending on what country you live in, and the accused's card, which was used to purchase it, and again, using the information that I was able to deem through the direct download I have in here. The Wi-Fi in this building is fantastic. It only takes me seconds to download so much gigabytes. It's beautiful. It was able to confirm with CCTV evidence that the accused did indeed buy 7 gallons of petrol in a gasoline canister using his credit card in the gas station closest to the building an hour before the fire. This, if you remember, was a roll, and Mr DorkToast literally got 7 out of 7, so that's about as good as you can get. So, yes, it's all looking rather not fantastic. We have no motivation, to be fair, but we have proof it's happened, how it could have happened, him buying the tools to do it, and the fact the tools were found in his vehicle that was registered to him. So quite a difficult thing for the defence to defend from here. And with that, we come to the defence's case. Starting off with a certificate of death, which was the death of his Aunt Sally. A tragic loss. I am sorry that you've lost your Aunt Sally. I hope she wasn't like that annoying one in that Sonic cartoon that nobody liked, even though it was pretty good, because she was annoying as hell. There's a TV here as well, but we're just ignoring that because people are being pricks. So, building up a case as to why the gentleman was not in the country. Now, the second piece of evidence was a particularly interesting one. It appears somebody's trying to bribe me here, but I don't take bribes, I'm a robot. This was the passport that he used to leave the country to visit jolly old England, although the defence made a mistake here, as allegedly this is a weird one, because I have to remember the exact phrasing, but they couldn't attend the funeral. No, I don't remember the phrasing exactly, but it laid out that basically the fire happened, and within a day of the fire happening, he was in England, had the funeral, and was heading back. The timing didn't work out. I don't remember the exact phrasing of the way it was done, which is on me. I'll accept that. I do forget information from time to time. But the phrasing made it feasibly impossible for him to be on an aeroplane, fly to England, and attend a funeral in the time span that was given by the defence. It's also noteworthy that there was no plane ticket in here, as we did coin tossing, although it's acceptable that the plane ticket, the defendant has gone. It's possible the plane ticket itself was gone, taken by the airport staff. And there was a cigarette on the back which links the passport to him, and the fact that he carries a cigarette around and he doesn't clean his apartment. That's fair enough. However, as you know, we also had a roll on this particular piece of evidence beforehand, and thank you, Mr. Bob. There is no evidence whatsoever at any time. You may sit, Mr. Gaming, thank you. There is no evidence at any time that Mr. Gaming used this passport in either the airports of VR Chatland or jolly old England in any way, shape or form, no airport gates, passes or anything along those lines. You said 9, the number was 1. It's quite a bad loss, Mr. CO, so not looking fantastic. Evidence number 3 was it was the itinerary of the event, the kind of books they give out, these sort of things with hymns, prayers, words, photos, what you expect to find at a funeral. What are you doing here? Leave immediately. Leave.
What are you talking?
Thank you, Mr. Toast. Now, it's possible that this was in the possession of Mr. Gaming. I don't know how he got it. You would assume he was in the country of Great Britain to get it, but as I said, there is no proof that he was ever in the country, which is rather problematic. So, a bit of a moot piece of evidence, really. And number 4, which really brought the whole case to a what the bloody hell is going on, was a surprise piece of evidence alleging that the prosecuting lawyer himself was involved in the arson, and quite possibly the arsonist, by the tracking of phone calls between himself and an unknown person talking about how much he hated working at the shop in question, which is when we learned it was a shop that had been burned down. That one was left very late in the warehousing department, which was confirmed by Mr. Toast that he was being used as a garbage can. Not necessarily an industrial one, because good God, I couldn't do that. But a very derogatory and downplayed job for a dustbin of his calibre, and therefore he may want to burn the place down. This led to some rather interesting conversations, and then on to the witnesses. As you know, we did end up dismissing both witnesses, one for drunken behaviour in the courtroom and the other one for being an unreliable witness. I accept that Mr. Rock is the fire marshal in question. I will be speaking to his direct report to report his behaviour in the courtroom, as being drunk in my courtroom, especially when he was sober when he entered, is unacceptable, and I believe he may have some form of booze on him. Yes, Mr. Birb, he may ask for some at the end of the case. But he did confirm that he was the one that signed the fire report, put it all into play, and was generally able to confirm a few details, although I do generally dismiss most of what he said outside of the fact that he was the one that wrote it. If the defence had really been on their toes, they could have argued there was a very good chance that Mr. Rock was drunk during the time of the investigation, and therefore the information he wrote on the report was entirely false, which could have nullified a lot of the prosecution's evidence, but Mr. Birb did fail to do this, which, fair enough, it was all a bit jolly there, really. And then we had the defence's witness.
To be fair, he didn't say if I could interrupt when it's something else.
No, I did allow you to object to witness questioning. That was stated that you could object during witness questioning, you just had to follow the rules. But I didn't give you the opportunity to cross-examine outside of your first question, which basically destroyed the credibility of the witness by asking him again who he'd seen, as the witness has stated he has seen a female leaving, and your client is very clearly not a female, and he was then unable to identify anything that he'd seen, which made him an uncredible witness.
But he didn't know what the gender was.
That was what he said when you asked him, but when Mr. Toast asked him, he said it was a female leaving, which is what really kind of got me going, yes, this is the question you need to ask. So that's why Mr. Tartan was thrown out. And in regards to the witness of Mr. Birb, I accept that you took a punt on somebody, and sometimes that doesn't always work out in your favour. That witness was not good and was thrown out for basically being horrifically inconsistent. But such things happen. And with that, I believe that I have covered what needs to be covered in the case, which means I can throw the tablet away. And it's been a thoroughly enjoyable case. I've genuinely enjoyed this one. I believe the lawyers have both presented a very interesting case to the courtroom, with some rather interesting twists and conversations, of which I said, Mr. Birb, we're having a conversation in my chambers after this. Oh, it'll be so much fun. However, based on the cases that have been presented, along with what has been found out via the coin tosses and number games, I know isn't luck fantastic, I do believe that I find the prosecution's case far more convincing in the comprehension and understandability of it, as well as the fact that the defence's case, although comprehensive in some ways, due to their choice to roll rather than just accepting there was a plane ticket in there and some unlucky turns, their evidence was not passable in court, and therefore, Mr. Ironic Gaming, again, unfortunately for the second time this evening, I must find you guilty of the crime of arson, although for reasons unknown, which is rather sad. What was the reason, Mr. Gaming? Why did you burn the place down before I sentence you?
It's just a picture of a place. I just want to say it was a picture of a place.
Oh, did they vote for the Republicans or the Conservative Party?
Yes, they did. They did.
Right, I therefore sentence Mr. Gaming to receive the VR Chat Medal of Honor for services against everyone else, and to be released with a cash bonus of $50,000 for removing that before being sent to the gallows. Yay!
Yay!
Sorry.